Hi, my name is Sofia Bacara, and welcome to Coming Home to Her. I am back in Vienna, and it's quite gloomy and dark, which is not the most amazing thing, but I'm also really trying to stay positive that summer, well, first we have spring that's coming, and then there's summer, and then hopefully summer can be stretched out for many months, and then there's the cycle of winter again, but nonetheless, we're working on being present. I thought that today's episode was it is a very special episode for myself, just because in the last 7 years, I can really reflect on this topic, and I think it's such a wonderful topic to touch base on, and whether you have done it yourself, whether you are planning to, or if you also haven't moved abroad, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's get into it. Moving abroad is, of course, framed to be this exciting and brave and new chapter, which it certainly is. But no one also really talks about what you feel and the different, let's say, waves of emotions that arise after the adrenaline has worn off. And you get to a point where you're sitting there and thinking, what now? Definitely, when I reflect on my own experience of when I decided in 6 months' time that I was going to move to Denmark and figure out my life, obviously I had one mission, which was getting into university, but I moved there with no plan besides that. And there was a sense of excitement and urgency for myself that I was already kind of bored with living in Hawaii. And not that that's a negative thing, of course, but I just felt within myself that, okay, it's time for something to change. Something needs to happen, and I'm just going to do it. And for anyone who moves abroad or moves to a different town or whatever it may be, different country, you obviously have this sense of needing or hunger if you are willing to, get out of your comfort zone, which is essentially where you were born, where your parents may live, where, your childhood friends are. And that's, of course, a very comfortable place to be, and nothing wrong with that if that's what fits your lifestyle and your, desires. Whether you're moving abroad or moving to a neighboring town or a different country or a different state, whatever it may be, before you do that, you, of course, go through an experience of this, let's say, intuitional desire of needing more or wanting to try something new. And I would say that if I can reflect on my own experience from when I moved from Maui to Copenhagen, I was extremely young. I was like 18 years old. But I remember that there was always this desire within myself that I needed more. I wanted to experience more. I wanted to see what my possibilities could be, etc. And this drive that you have and this excitement of this push and pull of, should I just do it? What if I don't do it? Will my life continue to be how it is? X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. And all these emotions and all this adrenaline happens, and you get on the plane and you arrive to your destination, and you're almost taken back in the sense of whoa, I actually did it, And of course, it may be the first 5 minutes, or it may be the first few days, and this excitement of being around new people, seeing people. I remember when I moved to Copenhagen, I saw so many people biking around me, and granted, I had been there many times before, but nonetheless, thinking to myself, wow, this is my new life. How cool is that? And this excitement, I think, is something so beautiful, a part of our, human experience, if we can say that, of these crazy emotions of, dopamine and all this excitement that's so raw. But after these few days of, let's say, being on a high, there's also the emotional crash where your emotions will, of course, catch up to you later. And it's a very natural thing to feel extremely lonely. The sense of sadness that you can't really explain. You're so far away from anything that feels familiar to you. You don't have your parents around you. You don't have your friends. You can't just really call up someone and say, hey, like, let's go for a walk or whatever it may be. And those are really heavy feelings to sit with. Reflecting on my own experience, I remember that there was days where I was crying, questioning myself whether it was the right decision, questioning myself if I will ever be happy, questioning myself if I could go this long without seeing my family and my friends, and also questioning my identity of who am I? Who do I want to be? And I would say for myself that this emotional crash is not regret. You obviously, of course, get to a point where you're able to build on it and give yourself grace and patience of allowing time to kind of pass and, putting your best effort and being out there and really trying to create a new sense of identity for yourself and a new sense of home. But I wouldn't say that for myself, I didn't just feel sad. I felt very off. Not really feeling connected to the culture in any way, having to navigate new routines, new systems, getting yourself registered, let's say in a new state or a new country or, even a new county, I'm sure. There's all this administrative stuff that you need to do and oh my gosh, I can't say this word. Bureaucracy, that's how you say it, I think. That's a very difficult word for me to say. And, having to navigate whether there's a new language as well. How do you communicate with someone? Of course, English is the global language, so most people can communicate in English, but even let's say if someone barely speaks English, or many people are also shy to speak English, and having to kind of figure out how do I communicate? How do I buy something in the store? Not wanting to stand out, let's say, as a tourist, quote unquote, or a newbie. That's how I was, where I remember going into a supermarket when I freshly moved to Copenhagen and I didn't speak Danish at the time, and I would die of anxiety just standing there in the line, of just feeling insecure that everything is super foreign, that everything is, a first-time experience. Where are the products in the store? What kind of products can I buy? I was used to buying XYZ, and now they don't have that here. What is similar to that? And then at the end of when I'm checking out, the cash register person asking me if I want the receipt and standing there awkwardly, aimlessly staring at them, not understanding what they're saying. And these are such real experiences that you go through when you do move to a new place that is completely different. And I would say that, at least for myself, when I look back now, 7 years ago, or 7 years in the future now I just moved to the third country that I'm living in within the EU, but nonetheless, at the moment, I'm going through the same thing that I went through 7 years ago, but of course, with having previous experience. But nonetheless, it's still a sense of sadness to be far away, to feel alone, to not really understand. And that kind of sucks. But then there comes a point where everything kind of makes sense. And you've been able to navigate your routine. Let's say you started going to workout classes or whatever your hobbies may be, going to classes of your hobby, or let's say in group settings, and you slowly start to make friends. And you really have to get out of your shell and be confident within yourself to start talking to people. I would say that I made most of my friends in workout classes and just kind of, I remember I have a friend, I could sense that she wasn't really understanding the class because it was taught in a different language. And then after the class, I asked her, I was like, where are you from? And we became friends, which was really nice. And just these small things that make you, more bold within your personality, also more confident in who you're wanting to be, who is the person that you're trying to recreate. And I think the coolest thing about moving to a new place and not really knowing anyone is you can literally be whoever you want to be. And that doesn't mean you need to fake who you are. At least I don't support that. But, maybe taking different experiences from the past with you into the present future of saying, I want to be a better friend. And that could mean XYZ. Or I want to not be so shy about doing new things that I've never done before. Which is so cool. Like, how many times and how many people get to say that? So I think these are small things that, we need to remind ourselves and remember that it's not linear, but it's also a process that you just need to be patient with. So loneliness can also show up in obviously many different ways. And I have seen with myself and with my friends who've gone through the same things that loneliness can be something that is so deeply felt that even though you're surrounded by so many people, and let's say you have a strong routine, you're out most of your days, you're meeting up with people, etc. And although you have like all this social connection, you still feel quite lonely, let's say deeply rooted within yourself, because you may not identify these people and these experiences with a sense of history within yourself that, of course, we gravitate to with our childhood, with our parents, with our foundational friends that I said in my last episode with Celia and Marina. And I also think it's so important to frame that loneliness is obviously not something that you're going to be feeling forever. It's just a time period where you are having to learn more about yourself and maybe even question yourself, why are you feeling lonely? And also reflecting on my experience, the times that I did feel super lonely, it also felt like I wanted to give up and I wanted to move home and I wanted to just kind of go back to my comfort zone. I also think it's super important that when you are in the phase of feeling loneliness and not really understanding why and needing to sit with yourself and, maybe really dive internally to understand what's going on, it's a good reminder that loneliness doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. I really believe that loneliness is also just a part of the new story of building a new home and rebuilding that sense of home within yourself. To really be able to go in within yourself and try to learn more about yourself. I think we never stop learning about ourselves based off of new experiences, past experiences, etc. And that's just a perfect opportunity to give yourself a little more grace and patience of needing to hold your own hand when maybe there's no one else around you to do so. And another thing with moving abroad that has come up for me multiple times, and I would say that even comes up to me nowadays, which is kind of annoying, but also I've just made peace with the fact that it's definitely going to be something that's probably going to be present for the rest of my life, just based on my type of personality and things I like to do and all the other fun stuff that comes with, exploring past your comfort zone, is that you, of course, doubt yourself. You doubt whether, like I previously mentioned, if it was the right thing to do. Even now, going home for almost 2 months, I came back to Vienna 10 days ago, or 2 weeks ago almost. And my first few days, I was literally just like crying and trying to figure out within myself if this was the right thing to do. Of course, that feeling of missing your parents who luckily, live on the same island, and my friends who I love so much. And although we're all very different and living very different lives, it's just that sense of identity that, it's comforting. And I think a huge thing that I've learned, and I'm still learning, which is tying back into, this kind of sense of feeling lost in the last week or 2 weeks, is making peace with the fact that you can miss home and actively also not want to live there. And that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you don't love it. It doesn't mean that you don't love your family or your friends. It just means that maybe there's something that you are desiring more of out of your life. And obviously, if you have the opportunity to do so and you feel that, intuitional pull, why not? So, moving abroad, I think, is something that I really encourage everyone to do, whether you just move to a different town, if you're in Hawaii, hopefully a different island, or to a different state, if you're in the US mainland or wherever you are, and even a different country. It's such a beautiful experience. And I really believe that everyone needs to experience the sense of, just having yourself. And who do you want to be? What are things that you want to do? New things you want to try? What kind of friends do you want around you? What does your perfect day and perfect routine look like? How can you make that your reality? And I think it's just so cool. Like, how cool is it to say that you have been so adventurous on your own that you feel as if you can conquer anything? I think that's another thing with moving abroad. It gives you such confidence, and you're so trusting within yourself that you really get to, do things with a clear head. You're confident in your judgment, confident in your actions. And I think everyone should do it. So I hope you book that ticket. And I hope you figure out what it is that you would like to accomplish and just take the leap of moving to a new place. I mean, 1, you can always move home. And 2, you're only going to have a positive experience for yourself, learning more about yourself, making new friends, really getting out of your comfort zone and growing as an individual. So that's my recommendation and my take on moving abroad. And I think that you should just do it. Thank you. Bye.